Distance.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. So I am Michelle. I'm a child life specialist, and I've been working with the children for over 20 years.
And I'm Sue, and I'm a behavior therapist. And I don't know, I start to worry about saying how long I've been doing this. It's a little over 40 years now. So, anyways, so we're going to hopefully give you some ideas and some strategies to work with your children and your children and stress, your children, to help you manage stress for with your children and youth. I think I'm still feeling a little stressed with all of my IT issues here tonight. So let's get the show on the road. Okay,
Yes.
so stress. Stress is
Yeah.
absolutely a normal response to certain situations and demands. So this is not something that we can actually ever get rid of, right? Like if we didn't have stress, we wouldn't be alive, right? So stress is a normal, everyday part of life, and it can affect children at any stage, and they can really feel overwhelmed, particularly when they're really, really young, because they just don't have the skills, they don't have the words, they can't even identify their emotions, let alone their thoughts, and they just know that it's a physical reaction that's affecting their body. Their heart starts to beat faster, and they start having all these physiological sensations in their body and reactions to stress, and they have no idea what's going on, right? So it gets very overwhelming very fast for them. But it's not so much that sort of short-term stress that we get concerned about. It's really that chronic sort of long-term stress when we're not dealing with things. This is what really leads us into that sort of concerned territory, because this is what sort of triggers some of those more mental health issues where we develop more of those anxiety issues, some other mental health problems, maybe some medical issues start to surface after very long periods of chronic stress. Okay, so that's where things start to get a bit dicey, is if we're not managing it and it's becoming a real problem and it's sort of festering into something else. Okay.
So what kind of things are causing stress? When stress comes up, children don't feel secure. So things like divorce, death in the family, moving, the birth of a new sibling, those kinds of things make them think, okay, what's going to happen to me? How is my life being affected? It can also be there's a lot of changes. Children don't do well with change, even when it's a positive change. So this will stress them out, um, and they need to adapt, right? But in order to adapt, you have to have an adaptable child. If you have a rigid child, if you have a child that is slow to adapt, it's going to bring up stress for everybody that needs to adapt, but especially for children that struggle with skills and have a harder time with change and with adapting because they're very rigid or black and white, their age, developmental, all those kinds of things. So essentially, change is hard. Children get stressed, and depending on the child and how resilient they are, it may affect them more than others. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like. So what you can do is
So,
when we go along,
yep, go ahead.
sorry, when we,
That's
yeah,
okay,
when
go
we
ahead.
go along, okay, I think there's a lag. I
There
think I'm
is a bit of a
ahead
lag.
of, yeah, yeah. Um, So when you look at the checklist, you can mentally kind of think about each child and maybe do any of these things. Say, okay, I'm seeing this on a regular basis. So with each slide that we go through, I just want you to take a look and see, am I dealing with any of these things Am I dealing with any of these things? Am I seeing any of these behavioral issues in my child or my teen or even in myself? Emotional symptoms, any of these that you can see in yourself or your child or your teen. Physical symptoms, Sue mentioned a few of them. The vomiting, the headaches, not coming from anything organic, but it's still real pain. They may have a sore jaw because they're grinding their teeth at night. Cognitive symptoms. Sometimes they seem like daydreamers because they're not concentrating, but they've got all the anxious, stressful thoughts going through their head. They have to make things perfect, so they're staying up late to work on projects. And this image kind of helps you understand maybe where your child or teen is coming from. So, do they have poor organization? Math is a big stressor for them. Maybe your child has ADHD and then they're impulsive. Well, then they failed their test and then they had a fight with their best friend. How are they going to feel? So they're going to be feeling overwhelmed, maybe some anxiety. They may feel misunderstood, discouraged, frustrated. So we have all these things that pile up, plus the emotion on top of it, and what happens? Then we see the reactions. So trying to look at where your children are coming from and what would be in their boxes. And then what are the emotions that are coming up for them on a regular basis?
So you want to think about sort of plan A, if we want to just call it plan A. And, you know, this is sort of our automatic, right? We tend to do what feels better in a time of stress, right? This is just that automatic, not necessarily the best response. And unfortunately, again, this is just that temporary relief, right? I panic. Um, I avoid, right? So it's all about the avoidance. If I just don't do it, if I just don't go there, if I just don't talk to that person, if I don't, go enter into whatever situation that is, if you just give me that toy, if you just read me that extra story, if you just buy me that candy, whatever it may be, I'm fine, right? So avoidance,
Mhm.
that withdraw, that shut down, if I don't talk, if I just go into my room, if I just, walk away from the dinner table and I don't sort of spend time with the family, whatever it may be. So if I withdraw, if I shut down, we see that a lot in teens. I'm fine. Everything is fine. The world is rosy. Quote, rosy, right? But these are not positive strategies. These are just those automatic sort of quote plan A strategies that we just automatically put into place that don't really resolve any of the situations that you know, actually come up with stress because we end up tending to sort of brood, right? And all of those sort of emotions that go along with stress are still there. And they're just sort of lurking underneath the surface. And then they can be easily re-triggered because they haven't been processed and they haven't been dealt with.
So what can we do instead? And that's where hopefully plan B will help you feel a little more in control and help your child feel a little more in control. What we tend to do is when we see our children are stressed out, we're seeing those reactions. We want to jump in and fix. We want to rescue them. And it's a band-aid solution for a long-term problem. And especially when it's chronic stress, this is not going away. So we need a plan. We have to customize it for your child's needs. We're not just saying you need to go and calm down or this is enough. You need to just be okay with this, stop being a baby. We tend to just want to make it go away, but that's actually not helpful. And we want to teach them how to do things and prepare them. So we've got to practice this routine, the strategies. What is it that's going to be helpful for them? And we have to be patient because some parents will do some of these things and then crisis hits and the child goes back to plan A, the panic, the withdrawal. But we have to be patient. Their brains are under construction until 25. And we tend to make plans and then we forget about them. We don't follow through. We don't make those changes. So we have to look back and say, let's check in after a few days. Let's see how we're going. What do we need to change up? Let's make some alterations and talk to your children about it and talk to your teenagers about it. Share feelings. Find out how they're feeling. We gave you that, that visual with all the emotions. What are the emotions that are coming up for them? Sometimes we think we know how they're feeling. Maybe they don't even know how they're feeling because they don't have that emotional vocabulary. And then on top of that, we want to be a good role model because when we are quickly getting agitated, when we're having a hard time in life, we're feeling stressed out. And what Sue and I hear a lot from the teenagers is, my parent wants me to do better. My parent wants me not to do this or that. And they're having a hard time. They will look at the parent and say, but they're stressed out all the time, or they don't do this, or their heads pop off for no reason, and I'm supposed to be okay. So, and the thing is children learn what they live. So how did you grow up? How did your parents show you to deal with emotion? Was it just swept under the rug, or was there a plan? Did they help build you up? Did they show you, okay, look, this is how we're going to do it. What would you like to do? And then step back to try it. So it's not a black and white answer. There's a lot of different things to incorporate, but we will give you some examples. And then you will have to go and work on these things with your child and teen and know that it's going to take some time and probably more than one conversation. You want to go ahead, Sue?
Sure. So everyone is affected very differently, right? So what stresses you out does not bother someone else, right? Our children and teens have very different tolerance levels to stressors, right? And again, they lack the skills to deal with it. So it's just remembering where they're coming from and understanding that, okay? And I think this is really important to recognize that, you don't need to jump in to rescue your kids all the time as well. And putting yourself, forward and thinking, are you protecting them or are you preparing them? So you don't want to always jump in. We want them to be able to learn, to be able to start to do some of that problem solving for themselves as well. And it helps them to be able to sort of bring things down. So if we're always jumping in, then, it's just about, avoidance, right? They don't have to deal with stuff. And then that just pushes our stress level up as well as it pushes theirs up because I'm running around, flailing all the time because I'm having to put fires out always. And it's just band-aid solutions, right? I'm just walking around. I'm putting out fires and popping on band-aids all the time. So nobody's learning, how to actually deal with their distress. They're not learning how to use some coping strategies to sort of bring down that temperature gauge because that's the piece with stress, right? Is that, as I said in the beginning, we can't ever get rid of it. We're going to be in stressful situations. Your kids are going to be in stressful situations and times where they're going to feel like their heads are going to want to pop off, or they're in those distressing moments where they're uncomfortable and it feels awkward, and they're not feeling like they're at ease. But what do they do to sort of turn that down so they can kind of process it a little bit to say, okay, I can be in this situation, feel uncomfortable, but I can still remain in control. I can keep my thoughts under control. I can keep myself in control. I can get through it, and everything's still going to be okay, right? Right? Because what's the worst that's going to happen, right? I may feel uncomfortable, I may feel awkward, but I'm still going to be all right, and everything will be okay afterwards. So don't have to rush and don't have to put that band-aid solution on all the time, because we want them to be able to have a feeling of success as well, that I did it. I was able to deal with that situation. And I was able to sort of get through it on my own without having to have, my caregiver sort of run to rescue me all the time, right?
Mhm. Exactly. Okay, so we've got a poll here to see what actually, other than electronics, what is actually helping them, or is electronics their main way of dealing with stress? So let's take a look. We've got a little poll here for you.
Sorry, I covered your faces for that, Sue and Michelle.
Oh, that's
That's
okay.
okay.
Nice job on. Oh, yeah, yes, sir. Got a lot of snugglers.
Mhm.
I like that. Having a good laugh is a good one. Awesome.
Mhm.
This is so important because everybody is different, right? Like, and this is about
Yeah.
knowing your child, right? And knowing what works best for them so that you can really play to that, right? Because this is a strength for them, and making sure that they have those things available for them to be able to use. Like, and if your kids do well with, laughter, or, telling a joke or whatever, maybe you have like a joke of the day for the family, or you post something, or everybody takes a turn posting something on the fridge, and you make sure that you take that time for snuggle time, right?
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah, and you want to make sure that they are using these things to refuel and feel better, and not just in the moment, that this is happening on a regular basis, because parents always ask us, what do you do in the moment? Well, in the moment, there's sometimes not a lot that you can do because they're not being rational. Where we've got all that emotion, and emotion evokes behavior. So we have sometimes the aggression or the yelling and screaming or just shutting down. In the moment, there's not a lot we can do. So it's more proactive measures. And what it does is it just keeps your stress levels lower, because a lot of your children and your teenagers, they seem like they're just popping, their heads popping off over no reason, but they're actually not at a zero, right? They're kind of hovering at that 5 or 6. So it doesn't take much for their heads to pop off, and get to that 10 or 12. So it's doing things on a regular basis. And a lot of us, even as adults, we are surviving through life and not thriving. And there's a lot of people that say, I don't have the time. I don't have time to take care of myself. I don't have time for self-care. This is a pipe dream to think, that you could do that. But then our children are watching us. And it's not about going to the spa or booking a trip. It's everyday kind of things, making sure that you're eating and drinking enough. Some people don't eat all day. And I know I get very hangry, or if I'm not sleeping, I'm only getting 5 hours of sleep. What kind of choices are you making? And then we're just exhausted. So it could be taking a step back, creating a routine for yourself, for your family in general, that we all take some downtime and do those things to refuel. And it may help to lower the stress levels. So when something does come up, then they're better able to make choices.
Using scales can be really a really useful tool because a lot of times Michelle and I also hear um, that kids go from 0 to 10 in, like, 60 seconds flat. And they really don't, right? So what happens a lot of times though is these kids that carry a lot of this sort of chronic anxiety, chronic stress, they're not ever really getting down to that sort of 1 or 0. Do they even understand what it feels like to get that sense of sort of calm or relaxed or loosey goosey, if you want to? They don't know what that feels like in their body. Those alarm bells are always on alert, so their muscles are a little more rigid. They're always sort of like looking, for danger, that sense of what's coming next, what's going to go wrong. The alarm bells are always there, right? The spidey sense is on. So they're probably already sitting at maybe a 3 or a 4 even. So if you add something to that, you remember the boxes that Michelle was talking about a few slides back, you add a few more boxes to that. Geez, it doesn't take very much to get up to like a 6 or a 7. And now, boom, off I go. And now I'm going to have an emotional reaction. But then I never come right back down because what? I never know what it feels like to get back down to a 0 or a 1. So I only come back down to a 3 or a 4 again. So we really have to try to work with our kids as well to even help them establish that sense of what does it feel like to get down to calm? What does it feel like to be relaxed and get into that sort of state of, being sort of, kind of chilled, right? So that's probably step number one, is helping your child to be able to achieve that state of relaxation. Because if they can't get there, it's going to be really tough for them to be able to sort of deal with adding on those extra stressors, adding on those extra boxes, if you will, because then they're always going to be more easily triggered to be able to go up to sort of that, more agitated or higher levels of anxiety, and then even full-blown panic. So using a scale like this can be really helpful for kids to sort of see where they really are and how much they're really even feeling in their body, right?
Mhm. Yeah. And this is just another example of a way to find out what's going on. So the one thermometer is great. This is just another way. And this is from do2learn.com. And you can print this off for free. They have ones that are more about anxiety. This one's an anger one. What makes them feel furious? What makes them feel angry? What makes them feel frustrated? And what makes them feel calm? So they may just think, angry is angry. Well, there's different levels of anger. And what does my calm look like? Are they able to talk about that and explain that to you? Or do they not know? And then you can kind of figure out, what is it that makes them agitated? What are those kinds of things that really set them off that you had no idea about? So no wonder you're agitated all the time, because you don't like the way your sister eats her cereal. The noise makes you crazy. You hate wearing jeans. You'd rather wear your soft pants, but I make you wear, jeans all the time, and you'd rather be wearing your joggers or whatever. So there's a lot of things that might be going on for them that we have no idea. So drawing or writing about it, it's another way to be able to express themselves. It's just finding the right fit for your child or teen. And this is from Kid Points, so another way to explain feelings. How do you feel about something? I don't know. I don't know what my emotions are. I'm not quite sure. So helping them label their emotions can help. So charts and things like that can just take some of the talking out of it, so they can look at that.
Really love the break cards too. I mean, I think that these can be really useful, especially as kids go back to school. When they're in those situations. I mean, and they can be used other places as well, especially like at parties or gatherings. If they just need to be able to sort of get away from larger gatherings or bigger spaces, just to be able to kind of chill out and go and maybe take a breath. And it's not a free sort of like, time away from the classroom. It's actually a productive time, right? It's what do I do during that break that is what's most important. So if I'm feeling that I need to take a break, what are the choices? And this is something that would need to be worked out ahead of time, with a teacher, or is there a place in a classroom, or is there somewhere where they can go? Can they go to a library? Do they have a predetermined quiet space somewhere where they can go? And then what are the tools there that they can use? Is it just breathing? Are there, like a lot of you mentioned, distraction techniques were really good for your kids. So they may have some like tools there. They might have some, headphones that the kids could listen to some quiet music. Maybe there's some counting activities or some manipulatives that they could use. So what are those calm down techniques that they can use in that space so that they can be in control and feel in charge of their emotions, calm that down, and be able to return rather than losing it and ending up, messing up their day and feeling like, what, I screwed up again. So this is an opportunity for them to feel I can be in charge of my emotions, and I'm just saying I need a break to be able to get in control, and then I can return.
And I talked about emotions earlier. Dr. Siegel talks about name it to tame it. So even teenagers that we've worked with, they don't know what this feeling is. I don't know what I'm feeling. I have a hard time understanding what's happening right now. So just being able to say, look, I'm feeling defeated. I'm feeling embarrassed. I'm feeling discouraged. I'm feeling isolated or lonely or depressed. To be able to say that, can help you feel better. And then tame it is, what am I doing when I feel that emotion? Having emotion is okay. Kicking your brother in the head or sleeping the weekend away is not okay. That behavior is not helpful. So what can we do instead that is helpful? And this is not a conversation we're having in the moment. These are things that we're doing as part of your day, your week. Let's play some charades. Let's talk about, show me what you think, guilty looks like. What does confused look like? You can make it a game. You can have a word of the day, word of the week. Have you ever felt that emotion? When would somebody feel that emotion? Label your emotion. Label your child or teen's emotion. Validate where they're coming from. And then they're going to feel heard, and they're more likely to open up about what's going on. And then you can create a plan after they feel like they're ready. Because we usually want to jump in and fix, and they just want to feel heard. So you can use this while you're validating and helping them express what's going on for them. So you can create a plan.
And I mean, the bottom line here, right, is like, let's try something new because, I mean, let's face it, right? I mean, you guys wouldn't be here if things were working. So it's
Hmm.
time to say, let's try something new. And, what are those things that bring some joy and happiness for your kids, for you guys, right? We need to think about what's happening in the environment at home. Everybody's been a little extra stressed. I mean, let's face it, this has been a very long year and a half. And we need to start to inject a little bit of happiness and joy into our lives again. And as we start to sort of roll back into society and life, and let's reconnect with that. And what were those things that brought us some happiness and joy? And remember what that was. And maybe some things have changed, and maybe we do need to just try some new things and dip our toes into the water. Make a list maybe of what are some of the three things that are, most meaningful for you. What are the things that are meaningful for your children? It may be different for each one of your kids, and maybe you take turns trying out what this one would like to do, or maybe we take turns for you know when we have a weekend free, everybody draws an activity out of a bin or whatever, and we take turns doing activities so that everybody has an opportunity to try something new. And then put different words, inspirations, posters, pictures. I love the stones with positive words. It doesn't have to be much, but these can just be things that just sort of boost our mood. You can put little post-it notes, in their lunches when they go back to school. You can put stuff on mirrors. Used to use stuff to draw on mirrors when kids were getting ready in the morning. That was one of our favorite things when the kids were growing up. They would wake up and there would be a little message on the mirror when they went to go brush their teeth. Um, you know, but it just needs to be a little something that makes people smile, starts the day off well, and just brings something to mind, right? That it just sort of lightens the mood and it shifts the direction, right? It shifts the direction away from the stress. And it's like, we're going to shift it and we're going to try something different because this isn't working, right? So we're going to try down this way and see if we can find something that just makes us feel a little bit brighter, a little bit different, right?
Yeah, and even just 1 degree of change, not completely getting rid of that
Absolutely.
emotion, but just turn it down a little bit. Yeah. Other things that are helpful is that positive thinking and those happy thoughts. What are those things that resonate for you? What resonates for your kids? Sue mentioned post-it notes, putting, those dry erase markers, putting those positive messages somewhere on a piece of paper that goes in your pocket, something that goes on your phone, lots of different things that you can do. But if you say you're going to have a bad day, you're more likely to have a bad day. When you wake up and you start with those positive affirmations that mean something to you, or when you can reframe those unhelpful thoughts in your head to say, you know what, this is going to be a bad day, or no one's going to talk to me. I just have to try. I did okay before. I can do well again, and just help them get through that. It's not going to be perfect, but the positive thinking will help them get there. Here are some
And I think
examples.
oh, sorry, go ahead. Go
It's
ahead.
okay, go ahead. So this is
So
just
the
helps you take a
the re
look like.
the reframe.
Yes, go ahead, Sue. Go ahead.
Okay, so the reframe here is what's important, right? Is instead of getting caught into that negative loop all the time and that sort of and you're going to hear this from your kids that I can't do this and what if I don't win, right? Especially with sports coming up, right? What if I don't win and I always lose or our team always loses and what's going to happen tomorrow or what's going to happen next week and no one likes me and I'm a loser and I can't make any friends. So we tend to hear these same themes, these common themes that come up. Let's let's shift it. Again, this is part of that. Let's try something new, is how do we shift this into some more positive and more helpful self-talk, right? Look for the challenge, right? How do I challenge that belief of I can't do this? Where have they done it before where it went well? So I've done it before and I can do it again. Look for similarities, look for other opportunities where they did do it and it did work out okay, even if it wasn't identical, a similar situation, right? To challenge the thinking. Even if it, not everybody does well all the time, and we do make mistakes sometimes, but I'm going to do my best, right? I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm going to give it my all, right? That's all that matters. And we're going to play as a team, right? And I'm going to take it one day at a time. I have no idea what's going to happen next week. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but this is what's happening right now. And that's part of that mindful thinking, right? Because with
Mhm.
mindfulness, right, we tend to either be thinking about the past, worrying about the future, and we're missing out on what's happening right now. So we want our kids, as well as ourselves, to be thinking about and experiencing the moment now, right? And that sort of I can do what well helps the kids to focus on what are their strengths, what are their abilities, what do they do well, rather than focusing on their deficits. We all have deficits. We all have things that we don't do well at. But why do we need to focus
Mhm.
on those? Why can't we shift it and focus on the things that we do well? And, we don't have to brag about it, but we can kind of say, hey, I do math really well, or I do art really well, or I'm really good at, I don't know, doing cartwheels in the backyard, right? So, you know, I don't think I could do a cartwheel if my life depended on it, to be quite honest. But you know, there are some kids that I'm sure could easily do cartwheels. But finding those things that they can sort of, feel proud about and really shift that mindset. And again, it gives them something different to focus on rather than getting stuck in that loop of negative self-talk.
Exactly. Just being able to take a moment, doing some relaxation, even taking a deep diaphragmatic breath, which is that big belly breath, right, where your diaphragm expands, helps lower the cortisol in your brain. Those are the simple things that we think, is it going to work? But practice them on a regular basis. We're not teaching your children how to do these things right in the moment, but is there a playlist you can create? Maybe play some music for them to kind of wind down at the end of the day or to lift their mood. What are those, relaxing things they like to do? Maybe they used to take bubble baths and they don't do it anymore. Maybe yourself, what do you do for yourself? Mental imagery helps with envisioning things going well, especially if you've got anxious children and teens, and also just imagining that you're somewhere. Where could you be right now? Think about the five senses. Progressive muscle relaxation is when you tense your muscles and then you relax them, so you can really see where the tension is and try to understand the difference between tense muscles and relaxed muscles. And some kids actually don't know what it feels like not to feel all tense and tight all the time. Mindful meditation, tons of apps and YouTube. It's just finding something that works and a message and even a voice that works, because there are some people that you may enjoy listening to and others that it's like, this is not for me. So it's trying it out. Help your kids find things. They're probably really good at helping you find things yourself, or they know what they like, but give them an opportunity. Right? These skills are really important, and these are the things they can do in the moment if they need to. And here's an example of progressive muscle relaxation. And you can look this up online as well. You could find scripts. Right? And square breathing is great. Books on
Love
the
those
way
books.
you feel.
Those are,
Act.
love those
They
books.
are great. They are. I actually have this book right here. I have it. Look. I do have this book.
Yeah, those are fantastic books.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I got those
And
for
this
my
book is,
granddaughter. They're little, they're
oh,
good. Got them for my
did you?
granddaughter. Yeah.
Yeah, like it actually has like why you would feel a certain emotion, right? Like I feel frustrated. I'm frustrated because I can't do it. It's hard and I want to cry. I don't know whether to give it up or to give it another try. We should be getting kickbacks for this, Sue.
We should. We
We're
should.
giving,
They're amazing. They're great. Yeah. They're no,
yeah.
they're really great.
Yeah, and then the little quiet zone, what does that look like? It could be underneath your dining room table. It could be an old box. It could be in their room, but those spaces that they can go to proactively and have that relaxing space. Is their room a mess? Not very relaxing. The house chaotic? I can't find a quiet space anywhere. Or when I go into my room, my sister comes in. I don't have any privacy. Where can you create those spaces, especially as they start getting older? Or maybe they like to go for walks, nature walks. Maybe it's a garden outside, and working in the garden. There's lots of ways that you can do things that make you feel better. Just trying it.
Oh, and the
Coloring.
coloring stuff is amazing. It was, I think both Michelle and I were so surprised when we did groups how many of the kids would take the coloring mandalas, and even as we were talking with them, they would be coloring and drawing, and I think at first we would be like, are they actually listening? And you know what? I
Yeah.
think they were actually more attentive because they had
Mm,
those. And they didn't have to
yeah.
be, have eye contact with us. And they took in more information because they did feel more calm
Hmm.
and more relaxed, because they were just, it wasn't like all eyes on me and, having to pay attention. So, having stuff like this, around is a really great idea. Just have some out like on a coffee table or whatever where your kids can maybe be coloring them while they're just watching TV or just hanging out in the living room. Would be a great idea.
And I think too that like Sue was saying, when we did them in group, are they paying attention? Yes. But sometimes that one-on-one, that eye contact, it's a little too intimidating. So I know when I worked more one-on-one with children, then I would always have something for them to do. So they didn't feel like, it was an interrogation that they could, because coloring is relaxing, right? So doing something else, I'm still listening, but I'm feeling a little more relaxed and that I can focus on this instead of feeling like I have to do this one-on-one with you and get serious, and then they can relax. So they're more likely to open up. So if you're trying to figure out what's going on with your child and teen, this might be your way in while doing something else, then conversation comes up. This is a mental imagery called belly balloon. Something that you could read. This is from Taming Your Dragons, which is a book. But it's really nice. Just imagining, a balloon inside your belly, and as you breathe in, blow up the balloon. As you breathe out, empty the balloon. So you can get the idea of how relaxing it is. And then this is something you and your child can do together. Or if this is too young because you've got older kids, that's where those apps or YouTube can be helpful, right?
I love that image. And some
Hmm.
of you
It's cute.
talked about that physical piece, and I think it depends on your child as well. But I don't downplay the benefits of that because some kids just really need to blow off that steam, and we do
Hmm.
see this especially during the school year where kids come home and it's like, hey, you've got your routine, you've got homework to do, and then you can go outside and play, and sometimes that can be counterproductive because they've been following the rules all day, especially if these kids have ADHD. They just need to go and have that blow off steam time. they need to go and run and shoot some hoops and maybe play in the yard or do some skipping or, do some hopscotch or whatever it is they like to do, ride a bike. Um, just to have some downtime, just to be able to shut this mental piece off, the cognitive stuff off that they've been really holding it together. Because a lot of them, if they're very anxious, they've really been kind of holding it together all day. If they're ADHD kids, they've also been trying to hold it together all day. And then a lot of times they'll come home and we'll see these big blow ups at home. And this is why we often hear from parents, it's like, my child is so completely different at home versus at school. And sometimes this is why, because we're pushing the envelope when they've been really trying to hold it together, and they're just like these little tight elastic bands that just snap. So let them, play to their strength. Do they need that quiet time? Do they need to have that time to just kind of chill, listen to music, like have that quiet zone time? Or are they those kids that need to get out and kind of run off some steam and then come back to sort of center point to get those routines done and get dinner done and get homework done? And you might find that you'll get a lot more productivity out of them if you play to what it is that they really need. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah. And distractions are good as well. Um, so reading, playing games, watching something funny, learning a new skill. I mean, it's helping them find new ways to more helpful ways because we can get caught up. Those anxious and stressed kids, they ruminate, they think about things, they don't feel like getting out, they isolate themselves, they shut down. So getting them doing other things, and let's not sit and just think about your math test, because your last math test you actually got a 95 in. So let's try to help you move on to the next thing. Not all the time, because we do need to validate them, and we don't want to just say don't worry about it, but there has to be a good balance. The wheel of choice is another option. Now this is for conflict resolution, but you can do the same thing where you can add some of these ideas to a wheel of choice or a checklist if you've got older kids. So we're preparing ahead of time, and then this is what you can do when you're feeling your stressors, coming up for you. What can you do instead? So you plan ahead and then allow them to use this to problem solve. And this is a great quote. A bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not on the branch, but on its own wings. Always believe in yourself. And our children, especially when we are overprotecting them, we're jumping into fix, they don't feel confident in themselves. So helping them try and stepping back and letting them do things on their own will eventually build that independence in them and their confidence. And again, it's not going to be perfect, but let them try. But you have to be able to tolerate some distress in yourself and also tolerate seeing your child in a little bit of distress. But they have to learn. We can't jump in and fix because that's just a band-aid solution for a long-term problem.
I think this piece of them, just, what are you doing for yourself, right? So we're practicing all this for the kids, and you need to be doing these things for yourself as well because, we also have stress and everybody knows that. But again, modeling, right? This is you modeling it. Children learn what they live. So what are the things that you're doing for yourself? Are you including some of those distraction techniques? Are you trying to use some of these calm down techniques? Are you maybe taking out some time for yourself to go do some physical activities where you can, if you can? It's trying to fit that in. Not everybody has to have clean floors to eat off of. Again, where are your priorities for yourself as well? Because you have to matter as much as your house does, right? So you have to find that balance to fit you into the roadmap here. Okay.
Exactly.
Lots of good
And
mental
here's some,
health apps out there today.
mm, yeah, really good ones. I think it's just finding one that's going to work. Some you do have to pay for, but there's others that are free. And some books. So, as we're finishing up, is there any questions that anybody has? We're happy to go over them.
While people think about that for a minute, I'm just going to drop in. Let me just make sure it's the right link. Yep. So that is the link to today's resource page. And is it? That's weird. It's not clickable there. And I'm going to drop in the feedback survey link as well. It just doesn't want to be dropped in. Okay. That is the feedback
Awesome.
survey. That is not looking right though, is it? There's the clickable link. Thank you again, Sue and Michelle. And I'm just checking.
Oh, you're welcome.
No questions tonight. Okay. Well, you will get a follow-up email that has all those links, and I'll update some of those excellent book resources on the resource page as well. And be sure to check on the Your Space website to see if there's any other sessions that are of interest to you. And we hope that we're going to see you again soon. And take care. Oh, wait, I see a question.
Oh, there was
Yeah,
a
there's a
question. Yeah.
question there. Yeah. And I think this is a planning ahead thing, that if your child has a
Yeah.
hard time finishing, is there some distractions? Is it happening only because they're on a screen? Does that normally happen at school? And if they need more help or they need more time, does that mean that you have to advocate for them? Or is it that they're easily distracted because they're sitting in the kitchen and listening to their brother playing, or they're by a window, or they've got video games going and they're trying to do their work? So it's more of that proactive measure. And then if they are having trouble, what can they do? How much time can they ask for help? Can they learn to advocate for themselves? So this is I don't know all the answers here. So this is something that you're going to have to dig a little bit deeper. Anything else, Sue, that you wanted to add on that?
Just wondered, it also depends how much time they actually need to complete a task. Sometimes we think
Mm-hmm.
that the time is actually shorter than what they require. So it might be checking
Mm-hmm.
in with them and going through steps and modeling steps. Going through and reviewing the expectations of the task that you're asking them to do, right? So going through
Mm-hmm.
and doing the task yourself, having them watch, doing it together, having them do it and you watch, and then seeing if they're able to do it, just to make sure that they have all of the proper steps involved and have all of the information. Because sometimes
Right.
we think that our kids have the information to follow through on something, but maybe there's pieces of information that are missing, or they may not have quite all the skills that we think they do.
Mhm. Yeah, I was under the impression this was for school, but yeah, it could be for anything, right? It could be a chore you wanted them to finish, you want them to clean their room, and you think it should take 20 minutes, and the child doesn't even know how to get started. I don't even know how to do this. So, giving them that shorter task, a checklist, and maybe we have to break it up in chunks, like Sue was saying, really figure out what they need.
I was thinking about a parent that we had to the other day that was struggling with getting a child up in the morning as well. And they were thinking, well, why are we having such a hard time? And then it was like, well, she has 15 minutes to get ready. And as it turns out, like the child actually needs more like a half an hour to 45 minutes. and needs a longer
Well,
time frame,
the child
right?
takes,
But
yeah, because the child took like half an hour just to get out of bed. They're one of those
just
kids
to
that
get
just
out of
likes to
bed,
lounge. And I think
yeah.
they had half
But
an
dad
hour
would,
ready, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But dad was actually
Yeah.
losing it and thinking like, why are they not getting ready? Like, I don't understand, right? So sometimes this is why I'm saying like developmentally they may not quite be there where we think they are. Or that just might be
Mhm.
part of their personality as well, that they need a little bit more time than what we think they do. So,
Mhm.
finding out, is it
Okay.
skills? Is it just part of who they are? Do they need more time? Do they need more direction? Do you need to model the skill with them? That may be part of it as well.
Mhm.
Thank you for that, Sue and Michelle. And thank you, everyone, for the thank yous that you've sent in the private chat as well, and for your patience tonight as well. Once we got things going, everything went really smoothly, and I think we're good. We'll hopefully see you again soon.